Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning once again, everyone. Welcome to Baby Steps. I got the lovely Peggy Simpson with me. Peggy, how is your Thirsty Thursday going?
It's terrific, and there's only one more day left in the work week. Thank
There's only
goodness.
one more, and I know that
Yay.
makes you really sad.
You can see how sad I am.
I can see that, and I know you got big plans for the weekend. Noah's still with you guys?
He is, yes.
How wonderful
Yeah.
is that? Always a good piece that give you a little teaser hint to be thinking about. There's something I'm going to ask you in just a moment.
Uh-oh.
That I know that you've done this with your kids as far as advice. Maybe you've already done it with Noah too, but we'll get to it. Are you ready to have some fun?
Oh, I'm ready. I'm
Let's
ready.
let's make this happen.
Let's get to
folks.
it. You always make me nervous when you say you got a surprise for me or something.
It's going to be good because I know you can do it. It's something I personally cannot do and talk about, but I know you can.
Okay.
So, folks, we're continuing our discussion on the Millennial Millionaire Mindset that works at any age. And today we're going to talk about a circle of influence. This is part one of a two-part series. We'll come back on two so you see at the end what we'll cover then. But be thinking about your circle of influence. As a real quick recap, on last Tuesday we defined millennials, which are the young adults in the early 21st century, and they dominate social networking groups. So for those of us who really want to have that mindset, we've got to embrace social networking. And so what is a mindset? It's an established set of attitudes. And with mindset, you have two choices. You can evolve or you can repeat. And we know what repetition is. That's how you get to insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over. And last Tuesday, we talked about four things actually. One first one was to create a vision. And you see there how important vision is to millennials, Gen Xers, and the baby boomers. This is a survey that was done. But I love this quote from Helen Keller. And it was, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. And the challenge put out there was to create a vision board. So hopefully you started thinking about that. Then we reviewed real quickly goals. Are your goals SMART goals? And that a goal should scare you a little bit and excite you a lot. And then we talked about priorities and what are you willing to give up to achieve your vision? And then I asked the question, hopefully you thought about this, 5 ways in which you are wealthy that does not include money or finance. Peggy had some great ones. Wealthy with her family, wealthy in love, wealthy with her friends, wealthy with her colleagues. You might have a wealth of talent. You maybe have a wealth of athletic ability. Whatever it is, think of 5 ways in which you're wealthy, and that is your why. Because the W means wealth. H is how do you manifest that wealth? And when you start to manifest it, the why becomes the real you. That's what it's all about. But today we're going to talk about the circle of influence. You are known by the company you keep. Here's one thing we know is a non-negotiable. Whatever your goal, whatever your vision, you must associate with people who have the same goal and the same vision. For example, you want to be a millionaire? You got to associate with millionaires, see how they think, how they act, what they do. Professional athlete, you've got to emulate professional athletes. Entertainers, if you want to be a surgeon, you need to associate with medical professionals and learn about that industry. So here comes the big question for you, Peggy.
Uh-oh.
Have you said to your kids when they were growing up, and maybe even to your grandson, you're known by the company you keep, and what advice do you give them?
Yes, I absolutely did. I absolutely did. And yes, I have had somewhat of that conversation with Noah, to the extent that you can with an 8-year-old, right? And basically, what I told them evolved over time. So when they were younger and feeling peer pressure, right? Wanting, like, maybe they would act up because they were associating with the worst kid in class, right? As far as behavior goes. When they were younger, I would tell them, you are accountable for yourself, right? So you have to make sure that you follow the rules so that you don't get in trouble. And you have to separate yourself. So I'd have to give them a little bit more specific instruction. When they got to like middle school and they were feeling peer pressure, you know, in new ways, right? And they were maybe feeling less than adequate, particularly middle school, high school, right? I would say you're not defined by other people. You want to be a certain way, surround yourself with those kind of kids. And if you can't find them, dare to be different. If you can't find them in your circle because of, you know, I'll use an example. My daughter was always straight and arrow. I'm going to be a teacher, right? And she used to spend all of her leisure time working with kids at the bowling alley, at the summer camps. And she couldn't understand why the other kids her age didn't relate to that, because they were out, you know, having a good time, doing their thing, thinking about boyfriends, you know, how's my hair? Do I have the latest fad on? You know, all the things that young teenagers think about, but she wasn't wired that way. And I was proud of her that she said, okay, you're over here, but I'm going over here and do my thing. Right now, as they're older, I absolutely then remind them that if they want to get ahead, how they want to be thought of, does how they posture themselves, does relate to the people they surround themselves with.
Absolutely. In fact, that leads right into the two quotes I want to leave our audience with, and a big shout out to Patrick for joining us over here. First one is, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And that is so very true. And the other one is, people inspire you or they drain you. Pick them wisely. And Peggy, I know we've worked together in many professional settings, and this, known by the company you keep, is also very valid for us as adults. And I know I can think of a couple of conversations that you and I've had about people that we supervised, or you and I had people we worked with, and you saw the potential in someone, but they were associating with people that were going to bring them down.
Yep, absolutely. That's a mouthful, that last quote. You absolutely have to pick carefully.
Yeah, you really do. And that leads us to the next part of this, and that is Jim Rohn, a guru in the field of personal development, teaches that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And think about that. Think about who are the 5 friends you spend the most time with, the colleagues you most associate with. And now during this time of COVID, we don't have that personal face-to-face interaction, but we're still conversing with them virtually. And also your family members. Who do you turn to? All of these people that you talk with and work with, this is called your circle of influence. And I'm going to give you an analogy, a metaphor here of really how this works and how this applies to your everyday life. Consider a basketball team. We've all probably seen basketball games, and there's 5 people, 5 players from each team on the court at one time. So you have the circle of 5, that influence. Their productivity is the average of their output collectively, meaning that you may have one person that dominates as a high scorer and it's great there. If you had 2 people like that, your average would be higher. Because whatever the 5 people are in that group, the average of their productivity is the productivity is the average of their output collectively. So how do you improve that? Well, the coach substitutes players, and the coach has to know where the strengths and weaknesses are. And changing up the 5 changes the outcome. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not for the better, but changing up your 5 changes the outcome. This is also true in life. I believe it's Les Brown that says if you're the smartest, wealthiest person in your group, you're in the wrong group.
Yep.
So what we ask you to do here is to evaluate your circle of influence. So before we go into how do you find a circle of influence, Peggy, your thoughts about a circle of influence?
Well, I know that it's critically important. I know that I can feel when I'm out of balance and don't have the right mix of people on the team as you relate it to the basketball team. And so I try to then do what a coach does in my own way, and that is alter the amount of time I spend with certain ones and spend more time with others to try to find that balance again. I have found it for a lot of reasons a little bit difficult to find that circle that really challenges me. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I've learned over time to acknowledge the reasons and try to get as close to a group that challenges me as I can.
That's an awesome intro into where we're headed with this whole conversation. So how do you find your circle of influence? There's all kinds of ways. One way is to go to conferences. Now, I know that we can't physically attend one right now, but in a few weeks, Peggy, you and I are going to be attending one. That's going to be a virtual global conference. I'm looking really forward to it. And it will probably have 10, maybe 20,000 people in attendance on it. So that's one way. Find a conference. And as Peggy said, sometimes you have to look outside your area to say, where can I go and get something more? Another one is a virtual networking events. The web right now is full of virtual networking events. In fact, here in our local area, there's a huge one happening this next week. I've already gotten emails about it. That's a great way in which to find your circle of influence. Don't forget social media. Remember the millennials. They love social media. They're out there on it. I have actually gone as far as identified a very specific audience that I want to work with. And in both Facebook and in LinkedIn primarily, I look to see who can I connect with. I look at their profiles and see who they are and then try to connect with that so you get really specific with it. But probably one of the most effective ways is just to ask around. Ask around. Find someone that you may know, that you feel like you can trust, and ask them for some answers. Ask them for some recommendations on this. Now, Peggy, I know you're going to know the answer to this question, so don't you give the real answer just yet, because it leads to something even greater. And here's the answer. Here's the question. What do all of these people have in common? Oprah, Barack Obama, Michael Phelps, Viola Davis, Meryl Streep, Jennifer Hudson, Simone Biles, Aaron Rodgers, and Josh Groban. What do all these people have in common besides being a household name? You think of some other similarities they have, Peg?
They're all successful in their field. They're all, I would say, leaders.
They're probably all fairly financially well off.
Yes. Well, they had the opportunity to be, right?
Yeah,
depending on what they did with it.
Endorsements, but yeah.
Right. Depending on what they did with it, they had the opportunity to be, for sure.
Right.
They've definitely all endured failure.
That's a good one.
Over time. What else?
Okay. Well, here's what we're going for. The one thing, the most important thing all of these people have in common is every one of them has a coach and a mentor. Every one of them has a coach and a mentor. That's something successful people have. And I will tell you, it's probably one of the most prominent things in a millennial mindset. Millennials realize they're young. They've got to look to someone else. They don't have the answers. They look to see where can they find someone that could be someone that would coach them. And when you look at someone like any of these folks, but let's just take the athletes, for example. You can be assured that Michael Phelps and Simone Biles and Aaron Rodgers, coaches, did not have the success in that particular field that they do. But they could see something in them that brought them out. You know, Oprah's, Viola Davis's, Meryl Streep, Jennifer Hudson's, Josh Groban's, their coaches probably have not won the accolades they've received. President Obama, his coach has never been president of the United States, but he's got one out there because that mentor is the one that shapes where they're going. So I want you to ask yourself this: if money was no object, none whatsoever, who would you want as your coach, mentor? And then go for it. So what does it take to be a good mentor? How do you know they're a good fit? Well, first of all, they're usually more experienced in the field than you are. Doesn't mean that they've won more awards, but they're more experienced. A mentor also provides constructive observations. That's a key word, not criticism, not critiques, but constructive observations. They provide advice, words of wisdom, encouragement, inspiration to keep you on course, and the assistance to course correct. Peggy, what are some other things you come to mind about what would be attributes of a good mentor you've had in the past?
So for me, I see a coach and a mentor a bit different, not the same.
Right.
The mentor is someone who does impart words of wisdom, encouragement, and inspires me in a longer term development and growth of myself, right? And or what I aspire to become. A coach is someone who maybe doesn't have the experience in my field, but has the understanding and wisdom and ability to ask me the right questions to help me find the right answers.
Right.
Or to give me the right path to follow so that I can improve my skill. It's really, a coach is really, to me, more about performance, and a mentor is really more about development.
Absolutely. You hit on a real critical thing there. And Patrick had a great comment. He said a lot of influence, but not a big circle. And he also mentioned another person in that group, Tyler Perry. And look what Tyler Perry has done in the area of Atlanta. But you're right about a coach and mentor here. A coach is someone that is going to provide you some of the constructive skills it needs to be to get to a specific level. I see a mentor as someone that you do a lot of modeling after. You see them and you model after them. Here's what to keep in mind about coaches and mentors. Great change requires support. If you could have done it by yourself, you would have done it by now. So that then leads to, where do you find coaches and mentors? Well, there is a thing called virtual mentoring. You can actually go out and you can hire someone to be your mentor in your particular area of field. Another one is online courses. I took one this morning. There's a particular product that I'm working with, I'm developing. I don't feel real secure in it, probably on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 5 on a good day. So I went and took this online course this morning, this webinar, and boom, I saw so many cool things and shortcuts and ways to do it. That's another place. And the two gentlemen that did it, both are over in Ireland, but they're now my coaches, my mentors, because I have a connection with them and a way to contact them. Another way is through the power of reading. And we've talked about reading in books here. Les Brown said you need to be reading 30 minutes a night. A book is your mentor, is your coach. A book can be your coach. Probably could be a mentor in some respect, but more so a coach. Podcast, fill your mind with the things we talked earlier. What are you willing to give up? Talked about that last week, your priorities. A podcast. Here's something, a side hustle. that includes mentoring. We talked last week about a side hustle. The reason I mentioned this is Peggy and I both are involved in a business venture. That one of the greatest attributes, in my opinion, of what this company does is they provide mentoring. They provide coaching. They have this library of podcasts, of YouTube videos, of training, their own streaming service where you can get training live. We were on one yesterday afternoon that just kind of blew us away that a person was doing. So a side hustle. Also, I mentioned this. I have a business partner that he and I work together, and we do mentoring and coaching, but we only do it if you're part of the side hustle. Why? Because then we have alignment. We have something together and we can work together with that. If you came to me and wanted to become a surgeon and wanted some mentoring and coaching, I'm probably not the person you want to come to for that. But someone that's looking for something more entrepreneurial, absolutely. And if you still can't figure this out, go to one of our best friends out there, YouTube, and just type in top 10 mentors on YouTube. And guess what? There is a YouTube out there that's going to introduce you to those top 10 mentors, whatever year this was. There's Gary V. And then what do you do with it? You go get their book, go get their podcast. Peggy, your thoughts on how to find mentors in coaching?
Yeah, these are all good ways. I would add social media groups like a Facebook group.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm part of a group that actually put out a request to members of the group for people who want to participate in mentoring others in the group, right? And they have a profile that they want us to fill out. And once we fill that out, they'll somehow make these profiles available to people in the group so they can contact those that might be of interest and aligned with them who might be able to get some mentoring. So finding the right group to associate yourself with, you may find mentors inside the group if it's a group related to things of interest for you. Definitely, talking to other people, just word of mouth. You can talk to other people that have been successful in what you're trying to do, or people that you admire for the qualities you're trying to develop. If you have the connection to be able to ask them straightforward questions, just ask them. Let them know you admire them, that they demonstrate qualities you're trying to get stronger in, and ask them who they had as a mentor or as a coach. Did they have one? How did they acquire this level of posture and this level of presence, and the other skills that you're looking for? So yeah, all different ways.
And I'll tell you right now too, millennials thrive on all these ways. I would venture to say the majority of millennials, and we got some on the line with us here. Andy just joined us as well. They're not hooked into television. They're doing streaming services. They're creating their own time. So all of these ways are ways, as Peggy said, to really work with it. And if you're a Gen Xer or a baby boomer, go ask a millennial that you see is pretty successful. How do you do this? How do you find your mentor coaches? What do you look for? So it's a great way to do the word of mouth. So between now and Tuesday, here's your homework assignment. Who are your mentors? If money was no object, my mentors would be, and come up with 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 of them. Why do I say if money was no object? Because money shouldn't be an object. Not when you look at the resources that are out there with podcasts, with books, with YouTube, with these social media groups Peggy just mentioned. There's a ton of ways out there in which to find mentors and coaches out there. Because what do? They help, they support, they give advice, and they give guidance. When it comes to a mentor, and this is another way in which a mentor and a coach really separates. A mentor is someone who allows you to see the hope inside of you. Now, Mitch, this was the first part of a 2-part series on the circle of influence. We dealt with this today because these are things that are kind of external out there for you to start looking at on ways to really take you the next level. When we come back on Tuesday, we're going to talk about becoming a lifelong learner. about how to become an infopreneur. There's a new term for you. Ask the question, do you practice what you preach? Do you give back? Because if you not have a philanthropic part of this, you're not going to be as successful as you normally are. And that's something real key and important to millennials, the ability to give back. And then learn to sell. And that's not what you think it is, learn to sell. Remember, I mentioned Peggy and I were on a call yesterday, and the person that did it had a quote that totally blew me away. And I want to share it with you. You know what's coming up next, Peggy. I see the head shaking. If your presence won't make an impact, your absence won't make a difference. Look at your circle of influence. Are you having an impact? And are they impacting you? If you're not, being in that circle is not going to matter. If they're not, you're in the wrong circle. Final thoughts, Peggy.
Yeah, I think, definitely spend some time thinking to yourself who your mentors are or who you would want to have as mentors. Having mentors and coaches is not something baby boomers, folks of our age, generally have thought about, right? It wasn't something really popular as we were growing up and maturing. And it's exciting to see the younger generations more open to that kind of thing.
Right.
That statement from Karen Hirsch was absolutely, one of those drop the mic moments for me. When she said that, I'm like, oh man, that is a lifetime of advice in one sentence.
Absolutely. And Karen's one of those people that extremely successful in the media market, had her own, her own magazine that she produced and published for years, extremely successful. And yet she kept finding a new way to do something different. And that right there, you're right. That was the mic drop quote right there with it.
It definitely was.
Karen's a good example, Ms. Hirsch, a good example of a mentor for Peggy and me. I met her, I know her, I've worked with her a little, but not someone I talk to on a daily, weekly, even monthly basis, but someone that I'm constantly have in my circle of influence and that I look to watch to see, and these nuggets like this come out that really impact you for the next level.
Yep. Well, I can't wait to continue this conversation on Tuesday to see where we're going and to see what we have to learn how to sell. I'm anxious.
I'm not a salesperson either, but it's a cool way to kind of put that. But yeah, be thinking about who are some people that are out there that you see, people that are part of your circle of influence. And when we come back on Tuesday, we're going to pull that together with those next steps I gave you. And then hopefully that will take us into the final piece, which is developing some habits. And these are habits that have been proven successful by highly successful millennials. And it works for us baby boomers too.
I can't wait until next week. For those of us, and thank you, Betty, for joining here. For those of us who joined, thank you. I want to wish everyone a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, stay cool.
Yes.
If you're in an area like we are, that's going to be steaming hot.
Right.
And we'll see you back here again on Tuesday. Same time,
Absolutely.
same channel.
That's right. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great weekend ahead.
Bye.